morning. I'm Bill Daughtry. Welcome to another edition of New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. Great show, inspiring stories to tell you about in this week's edition. Romy Camargo is a member of the U.S. Armed Services. He's paralyzed from the neck down, but he is still on active duty. How does that happen? You'll hear from Romy Camargo. You'll also hear from Heather Parisi, who is in Uganda, that's in Africa, with her Flip2BFit program. And she runs a school there called Pearl of Hope. She's got an interesting story. We'll hear from Heather Parisi. And last but certainly not least, John Cunningham is the executive director of the National AIDS Memorial Grove, but he's also involved in a great scholarship program. John Cunningham will be along to tell his story. I'm Bill Daughtry. That and more to come in this edition of New York Sports and Beyond right here on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. Honored to be chatting with one of history's most decorated wheelchair athletes, Tatiana McFadden, the defending champion of the wheelchair division of the New York City Marathon, joining me here on New York Sports and Beyond. Tatiana, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So the New York City Marathon coming up on November the 2nd. Last year you were the Grand Slam winner. You've got a hurdle across before you get here. That's the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. Talk about that competition and talk about the hurdles you face in returning to New York.
Well, they're both two very hard marathons, two very different marathons. Chicago is relatively all flat. And the New York City Marathon is one of the hardest marathons because you have the climbs, you have the descents, it's cold and it's very windy. So that plays a huge factor with the competitors. And I'm very excited to be back. I had an incredible season so far, winning Boston and London back to back, and on my way to Chicago and then New York. And so I hope I make the city proud running the New York City Marathon.
Talk, if you would, about the field that you'll be facing not only in New York but in Chicago, because as I understand it, it's a very formidable field of wheelers.
It is. It's going to be a very, very tough field. In Chicago last year, I won just by a second. Manuela Schar from Switzerland and my own teammate Amanda McGurk got third. And I think it's going to be relatively it's going to be the same pack of girls sticking together all the way through the finish. And the same goes for New York City. I'm not a very good downhill coaster, and so I managed to slip away a little bit, but hopefully the climbs will catch me back up, if not back to the front of the back, and to hopefully lead the race with the other wheelchair racers.
Now, you also took part in the Winter Olympics at Sochi. Tell us about your experience there, the Paralympic Winter Games.
It was going back to the place where I was born in Russia and having my adoptive family, my birth family there. And the experience was unforgettable, and it was such a fulfillment in my life. And training for the Sochi Paralympic Games was like starting over in a sport. I had no idea about country skiing. Training was completely different. I had to learn how to wear clothes. I had to change my diet. It's something that I had to start over, whereas wheelchair racing, I've been racing for several years, and I get the pattern down of things in the summer sport, but winter was definitely very, very different. But I was really happy to be named to the team, and then it was a cherry on top to win a silver medal at the Sochi Games.
Bill Daughtry with Tatiana McFadden. She is the defending champion of the wheelchair division at the New York City Marathon, which comes your way here, of course, in New York, the TCS New York City Marathon on Sunday, November 2nd. Tatiana going for another Grand Slam. First, she has the win in Chicago. I'm very confident you'll do it there. I mean, you're coming off of your personal best this year in Boston. What was that like? What was the difference in years past in your mind?
Boston was definitely very different, and it was definitely a special year. It was a year after of the tragedy that happened, and so I think the crowds came back electrifying. I mean, it was definitely an electrifying weekend. It was a weekend that I will never forget. I got to work with the Boston bomb victims for the entire weekend, and it was an experience that I will never forget. And I think just carrying just memories and carrying the people of Boston in our hearts, that was the most important thing for the race. And being able to do that and having the support from the crowd, it was, unbelievable things happened. I couldn't even believe how well I did, especially coming back after the Paralympic Games in Sochi. And 3 weeks later, I was running Boston. And I think it was just something very special about that weekend. And it was a Boston I'll definitely never forget.
Tatiana McFadden, tell our audience, if you would, what was it that encouraged you, that made you even try and compete in these wheelchair competitions?
I love to run. I absolutely just love running. It's my passion. Sports is my passion, and it's led me to inspire others, and it's led me to travel around the world and meet incredible people. And I absolutely just love what I do, and I love sharing my story.
Well, you do it so well, and if you would, tell us about this year's field. Who are the top challengers to your title this year?
The top challengers, top competitors in this field are Manuela from Switzerland, Amanda McGrory from the University of Illinois, Dion from Canada, Wakako from Japan, Susanna Scaroni, my other U of I teammates, and a few others. So it's going to be a very compact, tight wheelchair racers coming through from start to finish.
In your mind, what is it that sets you apart from these other competitors in the wheelchair division?
Oh, that's a great question. No matter what distance I'm doing, I was a sprinter first, and then I grew to be a marathoner. But I think just thinking about what I love, and that is to run, and being able to share that with the public, and being able, marathon weekends are very special. You get to meet different people, you get to hear different stories, and everyone has a reason why they're running. And just being able to share that and for people to see it. And it really just brings out just the happiness in running and putting in 110% from start to finish, and just hopefully, giving a great show.
Well, you are, as we said, one of history's most decorated wheelchair athletes, and of course, you will be here in New York City for the TCS New York City Marathon on Sunday, November 2nd. How about you go out there and you win in Chicago so you come back here with another swing at a Grand Slam this year? That'd be perfect, wouldn't it?
It would be absolutely perfect. It would be tough, but it would be perfect.
Well, the challenge is always the thing that keeps all athletes going. You've been up to the mark to this point. Good luck in Chicago, and we'll see you when you get here in New York.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
This is New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York, 98.7 FM. Bill Daughtry back with you on New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York, 98.7 FM, with Romy Camargo. He's a paraplegic, and he's the founder of the Stay in Step Foundation. And he's a man who had his life changed when he was shot in the neck during military service. And Romy, if I'm telling the story correctly, you are still an active member of the United States military.
Yes, sir. I'm currently still on active duty. I have 19 and a couple months in, and I'm set to retire in May of next year with 20 years active duty service.
That is a spectacular statement unto itself, considering the road that you've traveled down, the creation of your Stay in Step Foundation. But this month is Suicide Prevention Month, and after you suffered your injury, you went pretty much to the human abyss, I would imagine.
Roger that. You know, it's not what happens. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with, you know, what happened. So, you know, I take it day by day, and, you know, I have to stay focused and positive even in my most difficult moments.
Well, you only one that could really tell your story is you. So, Rami, why don't you tell us what happened from the time that you were wounded in combat?
Well, it was September 16th, 2008, and we were doing a regular mission down in Zabul province, Afghanistan. And as we were leaving, we had a vicious ambush. And during that ambush, I was directing fires and moving my troops around. And then I took a gunshot wound to the back of the neck, which paralyzed me from my shoulders down and, you know, compromised my respiratory. At that time, my medic came, and within 2 to 3 minutes, he conducted an emergency tracheometry, and they put a tube in my neck and started bagging me, giving me air, all under fire. And my medic, you know, he was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor for his actions during that day.
And I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Once they stabilized me, they got me in a medevac helicopter. And from there, I went from couple stops in Afghanistan to Landstuhl Medical Hospital in Germany to Walter Reed Medical Center here in D.C., all in 3 days.
And at some point, you actually thought about just ending it all, even through this terrific tale of survival, the fast action by the medic that saved your life and got you to a point where you could have a life, albeit a very different kind of life from what you were accustomed to. But at some point, you decided enough was enough.
Well, you know, it's hard, you know, to think about those things. You know, I then looked at my wife and my son and my daughter, and it's just, you know, one of those things that passes and goes. You know, you can't think about it. You just have to keep on keeping your mindset positive and focused, and, you know, have faith in God that, you know, He gave you a new life and that you can endure anything that happens.
Well, Romy Camargo, you've gone a step farther with that. You have gone on to create the spinal cord injury facilities. Talk about the recovery of SCI victims and what it was that made you create this great organization.
Well, yeah, my wife, she was the pioneer of this whole thing with the Stay in Step Spinal Cord Injury Recovery Center, and it's all about the intense activity-based, exercise-based physical therapy that I've been conducting for the last 2 years, which has kept me healthy throughout the last 2 years. I'm a high-level quadriplegic, and the doctors told me that if I would have pneumonia twice a year. That hasn't happened. They said that if I wouldn't breathe off the ventilator, well, I'm off the ventilator at least 16 hours a day. They said I would never stand or get out of my chair. Well, at the Stay in Step Spinal Cord Injury Recovery Center, I'm going to be out of my chair 4 or 5 times a week, 3 hours at a time, doing exercise-based physical therapy. So I've been, the doctors have said that I haven't been able to do this, that I wouldn't be able to do things. I do all those things.
Talking with Romy Camargo, a paraplegic and founder of the Stay in Step Foundation. He is also an active member of our armed forces after suffering a life-altering injury in Afghanistan on the battlefield. Romy, as I understand it, there have been several grafts of nerve cells into the injured portion of your spinal cord?
Yes, sir. I was the first active duty service member to travel to Lisbon, Portugal, and undergo the olfactory mucosa autograft surgery, which took nerves from the base of my nose and grafted them onto the injured portion of my spinal cord. And it has done wonders for me. And, you know, I'm able to be off the ventilator a lot longer. I'm physically stronger. I can regulate my temperature. I mean, it's unbelievable what that procedure did. And I was the first active duty service member to do so. In 2011, I presented my case to a 16-man panel that was formed by the Surgeon General of the Army, and the 16-man panel consisted of doctors, psychologists, social workers, anesthesiologists, and I presented my case, and I told them this was my only option for possible full recovery. And at that time, they said, "Roger that, he's good to go." In May of 2011, I flew to Portugal and underwent the surgery.
And as you said, the results have made a tremendous difference in the quality of your life. This is, Romy, National Suicide Prevention Month, Suicide Awareness Month. You have some tips as someone who, as I said earlier, has been to the abyss. Share these tips with our audience if there's someone under the sound of our voice who is in a situation that they find hard to live with as we speak.
Roger that. You know, first, you know, you have to have a mindset of steel. You know, you have to stay focused and positive, even at the most difficult times. You know, and it's all about the discipline. You know, and the heart and soul. You know, I connected with a whole new level, which allows me to rise up and serve so many more people. And, you know, it's not that I'm disabled. I'm rather enabled now. Then you have to have faith. You know, our Lord, like I always say, I thank the Lord Jesus Christ for allowing me to live that day and for giving the strength to my teammates to help them do so. You know, and commitment. You have to be committed to your rehab. You have to be committed to your family. You have to be committed to the schedule, and you have to be committed to work hard at all times. And also courage. You know, you face with unknown things and illnesses and et cetera. And doctors tell you that you can't do this, you can't do that. But with a little bit of courage and a lot of self-discipline, you can accomplish all those things, no matter what, because the doctors don't have the last word. You know, it's always about your faith and your belief in God all the time.
You know, Romy, you provide so much inspiration for your fellow soldiers, but there are 250,000 Americans with spinal cord injuries, and approximately 11,000 of those injuries occur per year. And I would imagine your story is one that could inspire them to reach for higher heights despite their situation.
Yeah, that's why we're opening this Stay in Step Spinal Cord Injury Recovery Center to help those that incurred, you know, spinal cord injury, either out in the civilian world or even in Afghanistan. The war is not over. I mean, we just had 2 guys come into the VA with a spinal cord injury from overseas. You know, and this is why we want to do it, because we want to help the veterans and the civilian spinal cord injury, you know, personnel that are here in Central Florida and the Tampa Bay area. You know, it's always it's hard for somebody with a spinal cord injury, especially if they don't have family or friends that are still around. So we open our center. We're going to have, you know, outreach programs. My wife's going to sit down with the caregivers, their wives and mothers, and we're going to have, you know, recreational center with TVs where we can all get together and watch some football, watch some basketball, watch some baseball, and get them out, get them out and about in the community. So, the Stay in Step's going to be excellent here in the Tampa Bay area.
As you mentioned the Tampa Bay area, Rami, I'm looking at your website right now, stayinstep.org, and it seems like you've had a lot of positive support from the New York Yankees. I'm just looking at Ichiro, Andy Pettitte, and CC Sabathia all doing something to help Stay in Step.
Yeah, roger that. We have a ball signed and autographed by Andy Pettitte, and also Ichiro Suzuki, and we have a pair of Air Jordan cleats signed by CC Sabathia. And we also have some 9-line apparel bags for, for those guys that want to go out in the woods, need a machete or a tomahawk. And those are the kind of things we're auctioning off. And, right now we're running a 30-day crowdfunding campaign to where we're going to raise $100,000 in 30 days. And you can go to our website, www.stayinstep.org, to take a look at all those things and, take your time and share it with your friends and families and hopefully, donate.
Roman Camargo, you are a soldier who I pray keeps marching, man. Nothing but the best in your future endeavors, and keep fighting the good fight.
Roger that, Bill. And that's what it's all about. We're still at war, and, I still have buddies out there in Afghanistan and, all over the world keeping us safe. So, I always thank the U.S. military, United States Special Operations Command, and everybody that's deployed overseas keeping us safe.
Once again, find out about the work that Rami Camargo is doing and how you can help out. Log on to his website, Stay in Step, it's one word, stayinstep.org. Up next, nutrition and fitness in Africa. Heather Parisi from Flip2BFit joins me next on New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. Bill Daughtry back on New York Sports and Beyond, joined by Heather Parisi. She is the founder of the Flip2BFit Games and Fitness for Africa. As a matter of fact, she's speaking to us from her Ugandan school, Pearl of Hope, in Uganda, Africa. And thanks for taking the time to be with us today, Heather.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about Flip2BFit, a fitness board game. That seems to clash. It seems to be an oxymoron, a fitness board game. But tell me how Flip2BFit came about and what you want to accomplish with it.
Well, growing up as a kid, board games are always something that we did. It was just that thing. You played Monopoly, you played Sorry, you played Twister. And as an adult, I kind of looked around and realized that kids were exercising their thumbs and not their minds or their bodies anymore. They were just sitting there in these technological devices, not doing anything anymore. And they weren't having interaction with people. It was all inside this little device. So I started thinking, and my world had always revolved around fitness. It was always something that I did. I was always up and playing. I was always involved in sports. I was always doing something. And I loved board games. So as I turned 40, I needed to figure out a way to keep myself in shape, and I started flipping cards, doing exercises to the cards. And then my niece and nephew wanted to do it with me and got really bored. So in a process of conversation with them, a board game came about, and we started moving around a board game, playing with the cards, doing exercises. And over the course of time, it developed into Flip2BFit, where you flip cards. It tells you to do yoga, cardio, stretching, or strength activities, and make your way around a board game till someone gets to the finish line. And you learn all different kinds of activities and exercises without needing any equipment. And then I added in nutrition facts so that people can learn a little bit more, have family fun, engage with each other, and get fit at the same time.
Talking with Heather Parisi. She is the creator of Flip2BFit. Now she's taken her campaign to Africa. You have the wonderful school where we're speaking to you from now, Pearl of Hope, which right now is a bamboo structure in Uganda. But talk to me, if you would, and I'm guessing from what you just said that the mission there is probably more nutrition than fitness, or does it go hand in hand when you talk about the population and the people of Uganda?
The two actually go hand in hand completely, because I really believe that everyone has the ability to live a healthy life as long as they know what their choices and their options are. So it's the same thing in the United States as it is here in Uganda. If you know that you have the right to eat healthy foods and how to prepare them, just as much as you learn how to do the right exercise and keep your body healthy and strong, then the kids end up being strong and they can fight off the cold and the flus and all the diseases that come their way that healthy bodies can fight off. So it really goes hand in hand, and my programs here do nutrition programs where we have garden projects and we teach them how to cultivate the right fruits and vegetables so they're not eating a high-starch diet and come up with diabetes. And we play the Flip2BFit board games where the kids actually learn all the differences between yoga, cardio, stretching, and strength, and it builds up their self-esteem. It helps their confidence come out. It makes them excited to come and go to school. And over the course of 2 years in the schools I use the games in, we've actually seen increases in attendance as well as children's grades. It's a really incredible project.
I was going to say, it looks like Flip2BFit is already a big hit among Ugandan school-age kids.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how much it gets the community up and going. I mean, even the moms and dads want to come to school, so we have outreach programs now where Flip2BFit is used twice a week to bring the moms and dads in as well so that they can see what their kids are learning and they're having a great time.
You kind of tipped the hand earlier when you were talking about some of the diseases you try and stay away from with changes in the diet of these children in Uganda. But give us an idea of what the typical Ugandan school kid, first, second, third grader, what their general diet consists of. This is before you guys came to town with Flip2BFit and put that emphasis on changing their diet.
Yeah, the typical diets here are very high in starch, which, as we all have learned with childhood obesity in the United States, it breaks down into sugars in your body, which cause diabetes. They eat a lot of sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, cassava, which is another grown type of potato-type starch, a lot of millet and corn. And all those things, they can grow very easily. They're fillers, and diabetes is rampant. So we've come in and tried to educate them on bringing in high fiber like oatmeal and the right kinds of fats using avocados, as well as trying to eliminate some of the ground nuts when they try to do things for fats, and teaching them how to eat raw vegetables instead of boiling them down to nothing anymore.
And as I understand it, the Ugandan Ministry of Education recognizes and gives its support to your school, but still, Pearl of Hope, they need some financial assistance. Talk about that.
Yeah, we actually just started an Indiegogo campaign because my school's been in operation for 2 years. I have K1 students who went into K2, but I've been running out of a bamboo hut, basically, and in order for me to get my permanent license and to stay in the community where I am, we have to build a permanent structure. So I've launched a campaign trying to raise $70,000 so that I can build permanent structures, put fitness fields in, and take my school from K1 to K3, have permanent offices, and have 90 students by 2016.
So now tell me about the game Bakari, another innovative fitness game. Tell me about that one.
That's like the game of concentration, but instead of matching characters or number cards, you're actually matching exercises. So you get to exercise your brain while you exercise your body at the same time. You can play it by yourself and go against the clock, or you can play it against someone else and see who collects the most points. And I've actually seen that one's great for adults. I travel with it all the time when I go places if there's not going to be a gym or if I'm worried that I'm not going to have a way to work out. Because you don't need any equipment or anything. You need a really small space. You can put the game right on top of a bed in a hotel room and do all the exercises right next to it. And you can do it for a half hour or you can do it for an hour. It just depends on how long it takes you to find all the matches.
And for the uninformed, I'm talking with Heather Parisi from Flip2BFit. She runs the Pearl of Hope School in Uganda. And for those who may not be up to their history, Uganda used to be the homeland of the dictator Idi Amin, and Joseph Kony also involved with kidnapping children and conscripting them into military service at a very young age. You've got some very sizable obstacles that you have to battle to keep the initiative going over there.
Yeah, and that's actually the area that I was drawn to. It's the northern part of Uganda, in about 30 kilometers outside of Gulu, up near the border of Sudan. And it was a no-go zone where Kony had come in and taken about 60,000 children. And these are the people that were taken away from their lands and pushed south of the Nile. They actually just moved back onto the property about 4 years ago. And about a year after that, I was up there getting to know them and realized that a lot of the schools never reopened. It's kind of the forgotten land of Uganda. And I knew that this was just something I had to figure out how to help. And that's why I ended up opening a nursery school here.
I was going to say, I know you've been very well received in Uganda. What kind of feedback do you get from back home, about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish?
Oh, my God. It's actually been really incredible. I've had a couple of child psychologists review my games and actually recognize the fact that smarter kids move more. People are just having a lot of fun with them, and I'm having the games placed now actually in schools from coast to coast. So that's been a really incredible part of this year, seeing several of the education distributors taking the games in to start seeing them in schools so that teachers are actually using them for transition. And the fact that I had so much recognition with the students here in Uganda, it's given me a lot of really good momentum and proof to show that the games actually work.
Hopefully your being on this program will move some people to help your organization, to help your cause financially. Tell me a little bit, if you would, and I'm kind of doing this in reverse order, Heather, because I wanted to get the word out about Flip2BFit and the Pearl of Hope School that you run in Uganda. But tell us a little bit more about you personally, where you're from, and some of your life experience. I understand you had to overcome a very serious injury early in life.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in New York. I was a gymnast as a child who had an accident doing gymnastics where I fractured my leg, and my right leg ended up being 3 inches shorter than my left leg. And I went through about 18 years of discrepancy, being bullied or pushed aside or tormented, and had to figure out how to overcome what the world saw me as and recognize who I was inside. That's where fitness always came in. It was kind of that one place where I always felt, quote unquote, normal. And it was that one place where I realized that in my own mind, in my own body, I could always be healthy. And I really wanted to find ways to share that with people. And that's where my whole concept of a healthy lifestyle came about. It wasn't just the fitness and it wasn't just nutrition. It was that inset inside my own mind that let me really find who I was to be happy and recognize that everyone's got a story. Everyone's been through something. You just have to find that confidence inside. And I wanted the people here and the people that I work with in the United States with childhood obesity to all recognize that we all have a story. We all have something we have to get over, but everyone's got it. So if we can just recognize in ourselves to be strong, then we can find happiness and be healthy.
Heather Parisi, a great cause, a great program. People can find out more about Flip2BFit at that website, Flip2BFit.com. If people want to find out more about you, about the organization, about your mission, where else can they find out? And even if they want to give you some financial support, which I think would not be out of the question, I think it'd be money well spent.
They can go to Fitness for Africa, which is fitnessforafrica.org. There's Flip2BFit.com, or if you search on Indiegogo, you can search Pearl of Hope School.
Heather Parisi, continued good luck and continued success. We hope to speak with you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You can find out more about supporting Flip2BFit at Flip2BFit.com. Coming up next, John Cunningham. He is the executive director of the National AIDS Memorial Grove. He also has information on the Pedro Zamora Young Leader Scholarship. John Cunningham joins me next. I'm Bill Daughtry on New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. Bill Daughtry back on New York Sports and Beyond with John Cunningham. He's the executive director of the National AIDS Memorial Grove, which I believe is in California. Is it not, John?
It's in San Francisco. That's right, Bill.
And, of course, San Francisco, I don't want to say a hotbed, but, I mean, it is basically ground zero for a lot that goes on in the gay and lesbian community here in our country. And not too long ago, it was ground zero for AIDS and the AIDS epidemic. And out of this, you have born the Pedro Zamora Young Leaders Scholarship Program. First, let's talk about the National AIDS Memorial Grove. What is it and why is it there?
So 23 years ago, a group of citizens here in San Francisco, after over 15,000 San Franciscans and 250,000 Americans had been lost to the virus, felt they needed a space that they could remember those. And it's a 10.5-acre memorial in Golden Gate Park, which is the number one ranked inner city park in all of America. And in 1996, it was actually bestowed national status and signed into law on World AIDS Day by then President Clinton. So we're truly honored out here in San Francisco to have a national memorial that stands on the same level as Mount Rushmore, Pearl Harbor, as well as all those in D.C.
And, of course, you can find out more about the Memorial Grove website at www.aidsmemorial.org. So talk to me about Pedro Zamora and then about the Young Leaders Scholarship Fund.
Well, as some of the listeners may remember, Pedro Zamora was a young man who was on the second season of Real World 20 years ago this year. That was on MTV. And back 20 years ago, things were very different regarding information and what was going on in the country regarding HIV and AIDS. And Pedro, really stepped forward as a young man at age 22. He had already been doing a lot of grassroots work in his community in Miami area, trying to educate young people about the virus. He himself was HIV positive. So the MTV opportunity on Real World really presented as a platform for him to continue to try to inform and to courageously step forward as an HIV positive gay male. And ironically, he passed away just a short time after the last episode of that season aired. So the National AIDS Memorial Grove, and like any memorial that's out there, it's so much more than the names that are there that are engraved in stone. It's the stories that are behind them, and any memorial is there not necessarily for those that went through it at that time, but to inform future generations about what particular event occurred, whether it be a war, whether it be the 9/11 memorial or the like. And with something such as HIV and AIDS, it has deep societal impact and what went on, and some real lessons for the next generation. And we want to support young people that are involved in the work on their current college campuses that are doing groundbreaking work, whether it be in medical treatment care, social justice, that they're actually carrying that torch that Pedro had passed to them. So we have the Pedro Zamora Young Leaders Scholarship Program. We're so thankful to United Healthcare, who is funding it for us, and this will be their 5th year they've done it out of the generosity of their own hearts. And we support college students that are doing the work out there, and from the scholarships range from $2,500 to $5,000. And as we all know these days, cost of going to higher education is ever rising and increasing.
And by the way, as we speak with John Cunningham, the executive director of the National AIDS Memorial Grove, these scholarships are open to high school seniors and college students that range up to ages 27.
That's correct. Supporting some of these students, maybe returning students. In the last several years, we've had a number of scholarships that have gone to actually HIV-positive youth that are doing, real groundbreaking work. Bill, one of the scholarships was given out last year to a gentleman that's at UCLA, and he's using social network and that platform because that's the communication mechanism that so many young people are using. And he's created a positive peer pressure process using social network to keep his peers making healthy decisions and making wise decisions as it relates to their own risk from the virus. Because, it's still an incurable virus. We've got great treatment options these days, but still today in the globe, to put it in perspective for your listening audience, every hour on the hour, the equivalent of a 747 crashes, killing everybody on board every single hour, every single day, and that's the number of people that are dying every day of HIV and AIDS in this world. So it's by no means is it done, and we're unfortunately facing another pandemic now with Ebola. So, it's a matter of just continuing to keep people aware and, try to dispel stigma and have people out there doing what needs to happen to stem the tide of the infection.
John, despite those grim numbers that you just laid out, I think we can both agree, as opposed to where we were, say, 25, 30, even 35 years ago with the epidemic with HIV and AIDS, that giant strides have been made. There are people now where once it was a death sentence, but now people are going on to live long and fruitful lives. And I guess example number one for everyone is Earvin Magic Johnson.
You're exactly right. There's been great advances in medical treatment and prevention, and the hottest thing right now, the newest thing is what's called PrEP, and it's a prevention. It's a drug that is provided by Gilead called Truvada, and individuals can actually take that drug, and it prevents the transmission and transference of the virus from one individual to the next. So there are great strides, and we continue to hope for a cure at some point, but God knows 30 plus years into it, we didn't ever think we'd be here without a cure. But the treatment has been incredibly helpful to so many people, including myself.
John, would you call Magic Johnson's situation, would you call that the turning point, the real word that, hey, this can happen to anybody?
I think without a doubt, Magic Johnson being such an iconic figure, being an individual that was bigger than life, an all-star in many different facets of his life, to have stepped forward and been able to, be honest about it and step out, and that took great risk and great courage for him. He was shunned for a period of time by other players. But over time, it as often happens when people take those courageous steps, he is seen as so much more of a leader, a humanitarian than before. I also had the great opportunity recently to have a conversation with Greg Louganis. And Greg's another one, who has been living with the virus for a long time and actually competed in Seoul as an HIV-positive man. Of course, no one knew at the time. But I think that it is, athletes are so much of a revered population and figures in society, especially among young people. And these days, it's so important that young people be able to see and hear from those that they so revere. And I think that the Magic is a perfect example of that.
When you talk about Greg Louganis, John, you can only just flash back to that moment. I believe it was at the Seoul Games where he hit his head on the diving board and opened up a pretty nasty gash and then went into the water. If people had known then, could you imagine what their reaction, what their approach might have been compared to them not knowing and everyone just seemingly going on as if nothing had happened?
You're exactly right. To have entered the water and had that concern, it would have been, and it would have been just, fear placed by so many. And so much of that comes from there's just general fear among populace when they don't know. When they don't know what the transmission or how it is transmitted can happen.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I can't say it gently. Fear is ignorance, and fortunately, we have organizations like the Pedro Zamora Young Leader Scholarship Fund to get the word out and let people know that they'll be all right, even with this dread disease. You can still live a life and live a life that is very credible and very helpful to others. That and, of course, the National AIDS Memorial Grove, of which you are the executive director. John, before we go, before you and I started talking on the air, you opened with comments about your San Francisco Giants. You confident?
I am confident. The Giants, what are they now, 7-0 in elimination games? And last night was a great game. The Pirates were certainly a formidable opponent. But I think that it's going to be tough going into D.C. But I think that they've got the wind at their back right now. And out here, we lost the A's. They didn't make it in, but the Giants are there, and the Giants have done it over the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're sitting in confidence.
Well, I got to ask you the other thing. My fantasy quarterback is Colin Kaepernick. Am I in good hands?
Well, I think time's going to tell. Obviously, this weekend's a big one with Alex Smith returning to the Bay Area. Many 49er fans wonder if the change was made too quick from Alex Smith to Colin Kaepernick. I mean, we can remember that Steve Young stood patiently on the sidelines watching Joe Montana for so many years, and when it was the right time, he stepped in. So, Colin's a young guy. I think that he's going to mature. He's certainly got the talent. It's a matter, I think, of harnessing the skill set and the courage in his head. And so, let's hope that happens. It's got to happen pretty quick. We can't lose another one or two. We're going to be out of it this year.
Well, Steve Young, a friend and colleague, I've known his family since the beginning days back in Greenwich, Connecticut, and he did pretty well and represented the city of San Francisco pretty well. Once again, you can find out more about both the National AIDS Memorial Grove and the Pedro Zamora Young Leaders Scholarship Fund at the Memorial Grove website. That's www.aidsmemorial.org, and scholarship recipients will be announced on World AIDS Day. That'll be on December 1st of this year. John Cunningham, great work. Keep up the job well done, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. And anybody that wants to submit, submissions are open up until October the 15th. So they got a little bit less than 2 weeks to go, so the full packet's online. Thank you so much, Bill. Have a great day.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Once again, we thank our guest, Romy Camargo. Find out more about his work at stayinstep.org. And Heather Parisi doing the great works over in Africa at Flip2BFit.com. Support her program and her school, the Pearl of Hope. And John Cunningham, the executive director of the National AIDS Memorial Grove. As you heard him say, you've got until October 15th to apply for the Pedro Zamora Young Leaders Scholarship, which will be awarded on December 1st, which is World AIDS Day. Thanks to all of our guests. Support their causes, and we thank you for listening. I'm Bill Daughtry. New York Sports and Beyond is produced by Raymond Santiago. We'll see you back here next weekend with another edition of New York Sports and Beyond on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.